This is a Bible study on God always removing his people. This will be a Bible-based evaluation of God always removing his people. Presented by myself, Richard L. Guthrie. There is a concept that God will always remove his people prior to a divine judgment. The judgments of the flood and that of Sodom and Gomorrah are always two examples cited to prove this concept. Since God has always removed his people prior to divine judgment, he becomes obligated to remove the church prior to the divine judgment of the found in the tribulation. Before I go any further, there are some basic rules that have applied to the study. Read the scriptures carefully. Do not add anything to what is written. Do not omit anything that is written. I've stayed with the King James Version and will not be deviating from that. For more information regarding this topic and other related topics, I highly recommend my book, The Rapture from the Ground Up. Before we evaluate the always aspect of this argument, let's take a closer look at the flood and the Sodom evacuations. The flood was God's judgment against a totally wicked world. Genesis 6:12, and God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And in verse 13, and God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. However, Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, and that's found in Genesis 6:8. 2 Peter 2:5, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. There were 8 souls saved on the ark that Noah built: Noah and his wife, Noah's 3 sons and their wives. It is noted that the names of Noah's wife and all 3 of his sons' daughter-in-laws are not provided in Scripture. The name of the ungodly wife of Lot is never mentioned. The name of the ungodly wife of Job is never mentioned. Circumstantial? Yes, but there are no coincidences in Scripture. We know for a fact that Noah was a believer. With the above information, it is at best suspect that any of the 4 women on the ark were also believers. One of Noah's sons sodomized Noah after the flood, and that's found in Genesis 9:20-24. And Noah began to be an husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken. And he was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his nakedness, and told his 2 brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment, and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah woke from his wine, and knew what his younger son had done unto him. Ham's actions against his drunken father makes it very suspect that he is a believer. The acts of the other 2 sons would imply that they were godly. However, of all 8 souls, only Noah has been identified as a believer. 5 of the 8 are suspect at best. To assert that God always removes his people prior to divine judgment, you would have to provide evidence that all 8 souls on the ark are in the category of being his people. That evidence just isn't there. Similarly, Lot was removed from Sodom before divine judgment was administered. Now this event is recorded in Genesis 19, verses 12-14. And the men said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whosoever thou hast in the city? Bring them out of this place. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord. And the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spoke unto his son-in-laws, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. The angels practically dragged Lot and his wife and 2 daughters out of Sodom, Genesis 19:16. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, and the Lord being merciful, and they brought him forth and set him without the city. There were 4 souls initially saved from the destruction of Sodom: Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters. Lot's wife was not godly and yearned back for Sodom. In chapter 19, verse 26 of Genesis. But his wife looked back from behind, and she became a pillar of salt. Lot's 2 daughters were not godly and committed incest with their drunken father Lot. Genesis 19, verses 30 to 36. Only Lot is positively identified as a believer. The actions of the 3 women make it doubtful that they were believers. To assert that God always removes his people prior to divine judgment, you would have to provide evidence that all 4 souls removed from Sodom are in the category of being his people. That evidence is not there. Upon close and honest biblical evaluation, citing Noah and Lot as examples of God removing his people prior to divine judgment becomes questionable at best. Are there examples in the Bible where God does not remove his people prior to divine judgment? The answer is yes. Israel was present and not removed during all of the 10 plagues against Egypt. That's found in Exodus chapter 7 through 12. The Israelites were present and not removed when God judged the prophets of Korah. That's found in Numbers 16, verses 19 through 35. The Israelites were present and removed when God judged the Amorites with hailstones. That's found in Joshua 10, verses 10 through 11. God is not obligated to remove his people prior to judgment based on biblical precedent. You have to distort and ignore Scripture to try and make this assertion fit. Even Noah and Lot are very poor examples of this assertion. God's judgment and wrath is always directed at the ungodly. God's wrath is never directed at the righteous. Please note that the 21 Revelation judgments are directed at the ungodly and is not directed at believers. The God always removes his people argument is one of many fallacies used to build a pre-tribulational rapture position. In a biblical study, if you put garbage in, you're just going to get garbage out. Garbage in equals garbage out. You will never arrive at God's truth if your basic assumptions are flawed. The question comes down to whether one believes in what the Bible actually presents, or does one believe in a fable that is orchestrated to reinforce an erroneous rapture position. Based on the Bible and not a twisted concept of it, God is not obligated to remove the church prior to the tribulation. Don't take my word on any of this. Check it out for yourself. 2 Timothy 2:15. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Acts 17:11. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind, and searched the scriptures daily, whether those things were so. Only then, with adequate Bible study and proper Bible study, can you be sure that you are not being deceived during these last days. Jesus gave us a warning about believers being deceived in Matthew 24:4. Again, for more information regarding this topic and other related topics, I highly recommend either of my books, The Rapture from the Ground Up or The Great Tribulation. That's again by Richard L. Guthrie. Thank you for watching and for listening.